Do you know what tools you need to start knitting? Which ones are best for beginners? And which upgrades are definitely worth it? Let's take a look at what's available out there and figure out what we really need. If you haven't watched the previous video where I show you how to do the slip knot and the long tail cast on, I'll leave a link at the end. You won't need any tools to follow that one. You can just get a taste of what it's like to knit using simple household items. There's something intrinsically magical about an artisan's tools. They really are the bridge between imagination and actual creation. Whether you're at your favorite yarn or craft store or just browsing online, it's really easy to get caught up in all the colors and gadgets and little things, and before you know it, that joy of discovery becomes an overwhelming disappointment. We can avoid that. With a little knowledge, gathering your tools can be quite painless. The first thing you're going to need in order to knit is a pair of knitting needles. These come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors, but the first thing to consider is what they're made of. Most modern knitting needles are made from metal, wood or bamboo, or plastic. Each has its pros and cons, and each knitter will experience them differently. Metal. Metal is durable, sturdy, and cool to the touch. Stitches move quickly and smoothly along their length. If your stitches tend to be tight, metal might be a good choice for you. Bamboo. Bamboo is light, sturdy, and warm to the touch, and it gets smoother with age as the oils in your fingers work their way into the wood. If your stitches tend to be loose, or if you tend to lose stitches off the end, this might be the choice for you. Plastic is an economical choice, and it's almost as smooth as metal. It's also light, warm to the touch, and flexible. While some knitters like the flex of the needles, it does require some extra control, so it may not be the best choice for a beginner. If you can gently test the flexibility before you buy, you'll get a better idea, since this will vary depending on the diameter of the needle and also from brand to brand. Wood is my favorite material, having the warmth of bamboo or plastic, but also the smooth finish that's pretty close to metal. So what to do if you're shopping online and have to rely on a photo to choose? You can still get an approximation of what these feel like using items you can find around your house. Gather a metal spoon, an unfinished wooden spoon, a plastic pen, and a pencil that doesn't have a plastic coating, or a finished wooden spoon. These will give you an idea of what the needle material will feel like. What you really want to pay close attention to is the tip. You want to look for a straight, gentle slope over the last inch or so of the needle's length. The point should be sharp but rounded. If it's too round, you won't be able to slide in between the yarn loops. If it's too sharp, you'll be at a greater risk of splitting your yarn rather than sliding between the loops. There are needles of different shapes too. The ones we've been looking at are 14-inch straight needles that are sold in pairs. These are the most basic needles and great for beginners who need to be able to hang on to something as they work. Because they're straight and relatively rigid, straight needles aren't great for working on a round or cylindrical piece of fabric. For those projects, you'll eventually need either a set of double-pointed needles or circular needles. Their names tell it all. Double points have a point on both ends of a shorter needle and come in a set of 4 or 5 needles in order to complete the circle you're working on. Circulars have even shorter tips and are connected to each other by a flexible cable. This allows you to bend around a round project, but it also relieves the stress of having to lift your entire project with each stitch. Here, the weight of your project sits on the cable and therefore in your lap. In the last video, I mentioned that the diameter of the needle will determine the size of the stitch, so we need to talk about sizes. The US system uses numerical sizes from 0000, the tiny fine lace needles, to size 50 plus jumbo needles for those oversized blankets and home decor items. You'll find that along with the US sizing, most needles also state their diameter in millimeters, the system used in most other countries. If we look at this one a little closer, you'll see it's an 8 millimeter needle, equivalent to a US size 11. This tiny one is only 2.25 millimeters, a size 1. You can see how slim it is. And our friend in the middle, let's see if I can get the light to shine on it, is a US size 8, and it comes in at 5 millimeters. So be careful. Size 8 and 8 millimeters are not the same size. For older mystery needles with no markings at all, there are little gauges like this that can help you determine the diameter and size of the needle. My favorite needles are wooden circulars with interchangeable tips. With a set of these, I have multiple sizes and lengths that I can mix and match. I can get the strength, slip, and warmth of wood, along with the ease of having my project weight in my lap and the convenience of a small set to store. If you find that you fall in love with knitting, this is the upgrade I would suggest as a reward for finishing your project. So which ones should an absolute beginner choose? My suggestion is a pair of size 8, 5 millimeter bamboo needles, the straight 14-inch ones. The bamboo is strong enough to withstand the beginner's death grip and will certainly remind you not to pull your yarn too tight. It's also got just the tiniest amount of give that makes the needles comfortable in your hands, yet stable enough for you to stay in control. And they get better as you use them. Why size 8, 5 millimeter? Because it goes with the yarn we're about to talk about. Again, like the needles, yarn is described by diameter. The finest yarns are given a number 1 on their yarn band. Used for lace or socks, these are usually the finest yarns. Size 2 is a little heavier. Size 3, there it is. 3 is heavier still, or is a medium weight. This is the yarn we usually think of when we think of knitting or crocheting projects. They keep going up through 5 bulkies and 6 very bulkies, all the way up to those super bulky yarns that are used for home decor projects or those oversized blankets. An important consideration is what the yarn is made of. There are natural yarns spun from either plant or animal sources, synthetic yarns that are actually finely spun plastic, and some that are either a combination of the two or a natural fiber that's been manipulated. Think of those as natural synthetics. All of these yarns behave a little differently from each other. Some are stretchy, some are smooth, some have been given artistic textures in the spinning process. What beginners want to look for are either wool or acrylic, which mimics wool very well, or a blend of the two. These are the most forgiving of the yarn fibers, and the variations in a beginner's tension aren't as apparent in the final fabric as they are with a less forgiving yarn, like cotton. The stretch in wool and acrylic will help you dig out the loops that form your fabric with the least amount of challenge. Color is by far the most personal choice when it comes to a project you want to make. The same pattern worked in 2 different colors will look similar, but also completely different. My rule of thumb is to choose a color I like working with, since I'll be spending some time with it, as well as one that suits the project. In general, lighter colors are easier to work with than darker ones, because you can see the formation of the stitches and the separate strands of yarn better. Yarns can be solid in color or variegated in a variety of ways. Yarns come in skeins, cakes, balls, and long hanks. The best choice for a beginner is a skein of worsted weight. I use a yarn that changes colors very quickly for teaching purposes. With the quick color changes, you can see the different loops on my needle and the movement of the yarn as I form the stitches. Choose a solid or a yarn that changes color, but be sure it's not too dark so you can watch what you're doing. Scissors. There's a surprising length of yarn, even in the smaller wools available, so you'll need a pair of scissors to cut your project free from the remaining yarn when you finish. What you'll want is a small pair of scissors that'll be dedicated to fabric only. Cutting paper or anything even thicker will dull the edge of the scissors so they shred rather than cut the yarn. Your first cut should be a short length that you can knot through one of the finger loops on the pair you're only going to use for fabric, so it doesn't get mixed up with any others you might already own. If you can find one that has at least one sharp blade, that's a plus when you need to poke into a particularly tight spot and make a precise cut. And a tapestry needle. These are oversized, blunt tip needles with large eyes. No matter what method you use to begin and end your project, you'll be left with at least 2 yarn tails when you finish. The tapestry needle is a great tool for finishing your project neatly and securely so it won't come apart at the seams. Tapestry needles are either usually metal or plastic, and like the larger knitting needles, the plastic ones are flexible. Although the metal ones are a little more expensive, they can last a lifetime if they're not lost or damaged, while the plastic ones are prone to snapping, at least in my hands. Project bags are optional but very useful tools. A project bag is a bag large enough to hold all your project items. The smaller tools, like the tapestry needle and scissors, can be kept in a smaller bag inside the project bag. Look around your house to see if there's a tote or backpack or a clean reusable grocery bag that you can use to keep your project portable and contained. Project bags are great projects themselves, perfect to try out a new knitting stitch or skill, and one we'll work on in a future video. So what about meditative tools? The best ones are the ones you create yourself, and we'll start on those in the very next video. For today, we'll do another immram using the items you collected to substitute for the knitting needles and images from tarot cards to help us stay focused. This time to visit the Magician and the High Priestess. The cards I'm using are from the Celtic Tarot by Kristoffer Hughes. Let's take a look at the realms they show us. The Magician stands in a druid grove where a stone table serves as his altar, his sacred space. He holds a mistletoe branch pointing upwards toward divine inspiration, also shown as the 3 rays of Awen directly over his head. His other hand points downward, keeping him grounded. On his altar, we see the tools of his trade representing the 4 elements. The metal tray with a triple spiral for earth, the steaming cauldron for water, the wand for fire, and the blade for air. You can step into his realm and chat about your choices for tools. The High Priestess stands in front of an archway formed by 2 trees that frame the view of a large lake. She stands at the gateway between the conscious and the unconscious, so her working tools are different than the Magician's. She's shown holding her book of knowledge and adding the herbal ingredients to the elixir she brews in her cauldron, which appears to be resting on some black stones, a natural altar. You can step into her realm and ask her about the lake where inspiration and creativity live, shown by the partially submerged harp. You can chat with her about both physical and meditative tools. Choose the realm you wish to visit. Take a deep breath in, let it out, and imagine yourself stepping into that realm. Hold the items in your hand. Take another breath in the realm of your choice and let it out. Approach the Magician or High Priestess and introduce yourself. Tell them that you are just starting out and that you are looking to make some choices about the tools you'll be working with. Ask if they will speak with you. You can show them what you have and ask if they have any suggestions for you, or if they can tell you about their tools and how they chose them. Be patient and stay open for spoken answers, for any symbols they may show you in your mind's eye, for anything that calls to one or more of your senses, for anything that seeks your attention. When you feel that you've gotten your answer, or that they're starting to pull back their energy, thank them for spending this time with you and offer them something in return. This could be one of the items you carried with you. The energetic offering will work as well as an actual one. Ask if you can return again and then bid them farewell. Take a breath, let it out, and imagine yourself stepping out of their realm and back into your own. Take a deep breath, let it out. Repeat until you are fully grounded and back in the present. Journal your experiences so you can remember and revisit anything you want to. You can repeat this immram as many times as you like, asking for clarification if the previous message remains unclear to you. I hope you enjoyed our time today, and I hope it helped you figure out which tools you need. Please try not to get coaxed down that rabbit hole and buy all your gadgets at once. Yarn crafting should be a lifelong source of enjoyment, and part of the enjoyment is discovering and mastering each new tool. Every project that you begin will tell you what you need, so you can collect them as you go. I'll leave a link for all the items we've talked about today in the description box below, and also a couple of sites where you may be able to find everything you need. There's no obligation, I don't get paid, and have no affiliate links to them. These are just sites that I've used and liked. If you enjoyed this video and found it at all helpful, please give it a thumbs up. I'd also love to hear from you, so drop a line in the comments below. Tell me what tools you currently use, or are thinking about, or are on your wish list. If you have any questions, leave them there too, and I'll answer them as best I can. You're not going to want to miss the next video where we actually start the first project. So make sure you've hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell for notifications. See you next time.